Nicholas P. Nedwick was an aggressive and physical basketball guard who made his mark at both ends of the floor, graduating as the program's all-time scoring leader, while also twice being named Little East Defensive Player of the Year. The Irvington, New York native led the Warriors to postseason tournaments 3 times and to their first Little East Tournament championship in 12 years as an all-New England senior. Nick led the Warriors in scoring in each of his final 3 years, scoring over 1,000 points in his final 2 years alone, en route to first-team All-Little East recognition each year. While Eastern struggled to reach 500 in the 10 years prior to Nick's arrival, the Warriors won 66% of their games in Nick's career, qualified for 2 ECAC New England tournaments, and reached their first NCAA tournament in 12 years. In a double overtime win over Keene State in the semifinals of the Little East tournament in his senior year, Nick had several key field goals and assists late in the game and in overtime, and Eastern went on to win the championship and later advanced to the NCAA Sweet 16. 10 years after leaving the program, Nick still ranks second all-time in points and among the all-time top 5 in 6 additional categories.
It is my pleasure to be speaking on behalf of Nick Nedwick. Nick can best be described as the ultimate competitor. He wanted to be challenged and pushed. He thrived in difficult situations. He embraced challenges. From day one, the coaching staff realized we had a special player in Nick. We also quickly realized we had our hands full. Nick's competitiveness occasionally led to a ball being randomly thrown or punted toward the bleachers. Nick continued to shine as our starting 2 guard for the next 3 years. As a junior and senior, he was selected Defensive Player of the Year in the Little East Conference. Offensively, Nick started to come into his own during his sophomore year. His energy and movement on the floor elevated the entire team's offensive play. To go along with Nick's competitiveness, he had an extremely high basketball IQ that would often allow him to get backdoor layups. Nick became a matchup problem for our opponents. He was a physical player who could score inside, drive the basketball, or shoot from the perimeter. Beyond the game, Nick's competitiveness was beginning to spread to the rest of the team. The energy and passion he brought to practice on a daily basis rubbed off onto the rest of the team. He made others want to play harder to compete harder. During his sophomore and junior years, the team won 20-plus games, but Nick was not satisfied. During his senior season, Nick led us to the Little East Championship and a trip to the NCAA tournament. The year was filled with highlights. One very memorable moment occurred during the Little East tournament. We were the number 1 seed and hosted Keene State in the semifinals. It was a tough game and we trailed most of the game. We were down 2 with under 10 seconds to go, and the ball found its way into Nick's hands. Nick drove the lane, and this is when the shot, or as Nick claims, the pass, occurred. Nick was cut off by defenders and miraculously found Chris Robitaille for a perfect pass for a layup to send the game into overtime. Nick then went on to send the game into a second overtime with a late 3-pointer. We won in 2 overtimes to punch our ticket to the NCAA tournament. That year, we advanced to the Sweet 16, where we lost to the eventual national runner-up Cabrini College. Even in defeat, Nick demonstrated his ultimate competitor status as he either scored or assisted on our last 25 points versus Cabrini. Joe Montana once said, "When the game is over, I just want to look at myself in the mirror, win or lose, and know I gave it everything I had." Nick is the epitome of this quote, whether it was practice on an early Monday morning or the conference championship on a Saturday afternoon. Nick left everything he had on the court.
He was that teammate you knew when he showed up, it was all business, right? He wasn't necessarily a get in your face guy and chirp at you like if you weren't. it was more so you could just read it. It was like beaming off of him, right? This guy's ready to go to war. This guy's gonna play his heart out. He tore his meniscus 3 times, like on court. Didn't sub out or anything, just played through it. He was an absolute monster.
He really put it out there for us, in the time that we had him at Eastern. Whether it was his knee, his ankles that he was getting treated on, before practice, after practice, before games. He was a guy, he just put in the extra hours.
I'll never forget that moment walking into that first day of pickup. And I think, Nick was the one where it just made it real clear that this was serious, this was competitive, and it's not going to be an easy ride in terms of playing time.
On the court, he's going to be a guy that will motivate you, will keep you accountable. And off the court, he's a guy that if you get into a FIFA match with him, he might put you in a headlock midway through the game.
I think the competitiveness that especially Nick brought to practice definitely leveled us up in terms of when it would translate to a game. A lot of the times, it would start pushing, little chatter in between players of trash talk. But when we left the court on practice, we all knew we had gotten better for it. And I think Nick played a big role in that.
He really expected a lot from us. Even from when he was a younger guy, as a sophomore, I think he took on that leadership role because he was one of our best players, And a key part of that, being a leader is to be able to play both sides of the ball. And I think that's something that Nick took pride in.
You just knew he was ready to go by him being on both sides of the ball and playing his heart out. He was guarding their best player. He was scoring at will. He was an absolute bulldog.
Nick had kind of that all-around mentality, and I think it goes back to him just being an intense person where basically everything he does, he concentrates hard on. He wears his emotion, on his sleeve, and I think that's what made him a great player all around.
I was always guarding him in practice, so all those ducking over screens and backdoor cuts, you could end up really quickly being made an example of in practice. And I wasn't the type to let someone just embarrass me in practice. So I'm playing him hard defensively. He's going hard offensively. Nick only has one speed.
Nick's character, the way that he is on the court, he's a demon. He'll just drive the ball down your neck and, force people to foul him. And that was a big part of what I picked up from him, was being able to execute, getting to the line and working on those free throws. He was an excellent free throw shooter. I think he's still top 10, and I picked that up from him. I was able to score pretty much half of my 1,000 points from the free throw line.
When you think about the end of that Keene State game, it's the final seconds. He has the ball and kind of tosses it up to Chris for the win. That kind of just showed you, or showed us, I guess, how Nick had kind of grown as a player, having trust in his teammates, and giving that last shot to someone else with the kind of just hoping that we would get the win and nothing else mattered, all personal accolades aside. And that's what Nick really had, I think, towards the end of his career.
He just cared more. And that is, I think, one of the most exemplary qualities of him as a leader. He cared more and he showed it.
At this time, it gives me great pleasure to present for induction into the Eastern Athletics Alumni Hall of Fame, Nicholas P. Nedwick.